Hi, everyone. For those who I haven't met, I'm Tai Nguyen, the Managing Director for Advanced Spatial Technologies. So today we have a special guest from Autodesk, Sam McAllister, who had over 20 years global experience in large, complex projects and BIM technologies. So our agenda for today to cover the new updates in AEC Collections. We delve into the latest features of Revit 2024 release, explore the sustainability tech previews, and also look at the visual communication with Twinmotion. So if you do have any questions during the webinar, please enter in the chat section. Alternatively, we'll open the line for question at the end. And with that, I would like to hand over to Sam.
Cool. Thanks so much, Tai. So everyone can see my screen okay. If anybody does need to contact me, if they don't get time for Q&A, my email contact is there on the screen. I cover architecture in the APAC region, and this will be covering some new stuff in the collections. So today's agenda, I'm going to keep it quite simple. We're going to be looking at Forma, which has now been included in the collection. We'll go into a bit of detail on what features are available for this region and what aren't. The 2024, again, Revit has got a big release. There's some really cool new features, so that's going to be a chunk of the presentation. And finally, we'll wrap up with Twinmotion. So collections, subscription customers, and Revit, you now get access to Twinmotion, and we have a linking feature to connect you with Twinmotion from the Revit environment. So number one, Forma, big release. We announced this at Autodesk University last year. It used to be SpaceMaker. Now it's migrated into the next gen of this tool called Forma. The only limitation for this part of the world is the site context. So there are workarounds, but just if you've got in the collection and you're wanting to use it to pull in data, it doesn't have the same amount of data in this region as it does, say, in Europe or in the US. So the first Forma offering, brand new, it has contextual modeling data. And again, it depends on where you are in the world, but it will pull down site topography and buildings and street maps and stuff. It's a fantastic conceptual design engine. It's got some automation in it. It's got a sketch design tool that's come across from the Formit team. It has automation tools to speed up the process of designing the buildings. And from the sustainability viewpoint, we have a number of new rapid analysis tools. And then finally, at the end of using Forma, its interoperability allows you to connect the data into Revit or export out as an OBJ or an IFC for use in other softwares. So Forma, it's our first offering. It's the next generation experience. So basically, it's going to allow all users to get into BIM. So if you've got team members who are paying money for other tools like SketchUp and Rhino, they can now access Forma to replace those tools ideally and connect it into Revit. We have a number of tools that will start to automatically lay out the buildings on the site, and then you can run all these analysis tools without having to be an expert to get results straight away. And the big thing is it runs on the cloud, so you don't have to install any software. You just use Google Chrome, and working in that environment will sync across to Revit, and the Revit data can go back into Forma. So there's some really cool things happening in this space. So these slides didn't animate quite right, but one of the key things for Forma is the interoperability. It will sync across to Revit. So you can send to Revit, and then you can load it into your Revit environment, and that massing elements will turn into Revit parametric families. So some really cool things there with the interoperability. Conceptual design, so you can model within a site context. You can automate some of it in a very quick manner. And then as you go through and you optimize that design, you can run analysis all in real time using the rapid analysis tool and then run model comparisons. So I've got a couple of videos here to get into just to show you how it works in the region where it came from. So it originated out of Norway, hence why we're starting with a Scandinavian site here. So this is how you create your site model. You choose the part of the world you want from the address, and then depending on where it is, the data will be made available. If it's not got local providers, then OpenStreetMaps will be the default. It will bring down your site terrain, the local building information, building data, and aerial imagery. Site boundaries are available, roads and rail information as well. Now, if you don't have this information available, you can still import it in as an OBJ or IFC file. With conceptual design, it can be very quick and easy to get up and running. So at the moment, the tool is targeted at the multi-residential sector. So, but you can have kind of mixed retail with it and commercial. Here, we've got these really simple tools just to point and shoot and lay out the building designs. It has accuracy, so you can snap and you can work to right angles and parallels. And as you're changing the design, you can do setbacks. You've even got the format engine in here where you can start to fill it and loft and boolean different shapes. So you can start to do that very easily with edges of the model. And as you're evolving the design and changing the functions of the buildings, it will give you area metrics on those designs, like your GFA and GIA. Automation. So the automations allow you to work with some tools in the platform here. This is like doing your corridors, so you can have them aligned to the center or to the middle. A cool new tool is being able to now control the floor plan. So you can break up those buildings into individual units. You can assign functions to the cores and to the halls and to each individual unit. There's even the car park tool. The car park tool will allow you to choose a building and then configure the car parking. We also do have some extensions with companies like TestFit and ShapeDiver. Analysis, a lot of the tools here now are basically rapid analysis. So you don't have to wait ages for them to compute. We have like a direct sun analysis or a daylight analysis, and you can load them up into the comparison tool. The compare tool will then allow you to look at them side by side, and you can report on these as well. So some really powerful features here to run the analysis and then actually have a report on it. It's got real-time wind analysis. So if you've ever done a computational fluid dynamics calculation, they can take forever, but you can do them really quickly here, along with the microclimate, where you can start to measure the temperature from radiation buildup between buildings and hotter climates. Interoperability, I mean, this is the big one. If you're using Revit and you're wanting to do sketch designs and you want to bring them into Revit, Forma is the #1 tool to do it. It's going to allow you to bring in the data accurately, and it's going to convert the data. So here we have the site topography converting now into the new Revit 2024 Topo Solid. It instead of a surface, it creates an actual solid object, which you can Boolean voids out of. It has tools which will bring across the aerial imagery from the topology. So here, once you've downloaded the Revit add-in, you can then send the proposal out of Forma. Inside of Revit, you just load the proposal, and that has load options as well. And within those load options, you can choose how you want the geometry to be converted, whether you want walls merged together, if you want to include the room areas. This will go and load all the information. It brings in the topography, it converts it to a Topo Solid, and that's now a new system family. It's got the site boundaries here, and then the Topo Solid, of course, has attached to it tiled maps of the aerial imagery. So all of this data is ready to be reused accurately inside of Revit. And for models, you can convert them into Revit system families here. So floors and walls and roofs. A couple other cool things that are happening is you can tag the room areas. So it goes and creates the room areas, and it does the shared coordinate setup. So if you've ever struggled like me to deal with the shared coordinates, this will create it for you because you're doing it in the front end setup. So the last new feature we have here is being able to sync the information back to Forma. A quick note is to duplicate the proposal, because when you do sync it back, it will override it with the Revit data. But there's this bi-directional workflow between Forma and Revit. So brand new tool, that's the overview. And if you're keen to know more, reach out to your partner, to us, and we can take you on a further journey with this new offering in the collection. So 2024, if we look at the top capabilities, and I'm focusing on architects, but I will cover some engineers, engineering stuff. So what we've done over the last few years is we don't just do one big major release. We do 2023.1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s, same as 2024. We'll update the product so you get these features quicker. So a number of things have come out over the last couple of years. Some new things for 24 is we've got this texture tool in the graphic display. The site design tool is a big one for anybody who's struggled with site design or landscape architecture. A number of new things here within the general platform. Documentation, simple things like being able to schedule revision clouds. You can do that in the new 2024, and more tools to move align views to sheets. And then in the miscellaneous items, linking coordination models from Autodesk Docs, or looking at some of the interoperability with the data exchange and the new parameter service, which we'll get into. So there's a lot of features, and my goal is to get this done within the hour allotted for this webinar. So that's just the list, and we'll get into each section now. So design productivity, when you install the new 2024, you'll see this new My Insights panel in the Revit home, just under the Autodesk Docs environment. So basically, it's capturing this data, and you can find trends in your workflows. So it will help you quantify your most common commands and keystrokes, and then it will analyze it and offer suggestions for how you can optimize and save time when completing these design tasks. We now have a dark theme. So for anybody who's did eye strain working on a project deadline at 4 in the morning to a white screen, we now have a black screen. And you can set this up. It's in the option bar to flick into the dark theme setting. There's also in the view dialog control bar, you can start to set the drawing area and the canvas theme to dark or light. So for certain views, you may want to be working in a light view, especially in a 3D view, because it actually inverts the light lines on the edge of the model. It makes them white, whereas if you go to the white screen, it makes them black. So there's a few options here with this new dark theme for 2024. We have some new data sets. So we've got them for both imperial and metric. It's the Snowdown Towers, and it's an office building which is set in a district where they've laser scanned some of the existing buildings. It has the architecture, the structural, and the MEP. So if you're new to Revit, or you're wanting to see how the sample model is set up, it's a really good 2024 sample model for you to review and learn from. We now have modernized the project browser. So there's a new search function available at the top of the project browser. So the search, it will start automatically. It will go through the project browser and update relevant results as you start to type into that search function. So they match keywords, they're highlighted, they're filtered in the list, and on all levels of the hierarchy within that project browser. The color book browser. So this replaces how you can select the Pantone colors. So you can access new color books and dialogues, including the original Pantone and RAL or RAL. That's still available, but you can use this color book editor now to create your own custom color book files. and you can store what's called the .acb file. It's under the file path that will be in your C program data, Autodesk, and then under Revit version, there will be a color book, and you can say that .acb file there should you want to have that for consistent color standards. A new visual style we've added, so it's a texture visual style. The whole idea here is that you want to be able to see those texture maps, but you don't want to have the lighting effects running at the same time. So this is just a new feature to allow you to see the textures you've applied to the model, but not have it slow down with it doing the primary and secondary calculations from the light source bounces and stuff. So 2024 now has the site design, a lot of features here. I'm going to start off with the for video. Let me go back, just run the video. So this is just going to take us through how you can use the tools to create from a sketch or create from an import, like a CAD import or a CSV file. So typically you'll draw the component, and then if you want to manually add points, you can start to do this. There's different elevation points you can set this up at. If you do it from an import, so typically you'll have a surveyor who will provide you with a 3D CAD file. You can bring that in, and traditionally within Revit, it will create that surface. Now in 2024, it converts that surface into a proper topo solid. So you can set it up in the project base point or the datum, and then we have family types for that topo solid as well. So it's a system family that you can edit. So here, if you need to go and look at the information, you can filter through what you want to see in the view, and you can then go and edit that information like you would with a typical system family. So for a topo solid, you're going to have dirt, and then maybe a couple of layers of gravel and topsoil for laying grass. All of that can be edited in that system family. We also have the ability to do subdivisions where you can add a different type of surface. Now this will sit on top of the topo solid, and there are some good influencer tutorials out there on different workflows, and you can host certain elements to the edge of those surfaces as well. So some really cool features here to enable you to do the things that you want to do with soft and hardscape landscaping. Because now it's a solid, it's a topo solid, you can cut into it. So if we're doing underground components, if we need to put in something under or embedded within that topo solid, we can cut into it. So simply here within the application, we can go to this view, and we can start to look at cutting into the topo solid. Now, some users have actually gone and created like a specialist family for doing this, where it just cuts into the topo solid. The basic way to do this is to do it with the massing tool. And what you can do here is you can go and use the in-place mass, draw the shape that you want to boolean out of the topo solid, select it, and then create a void form. This one's dropped down to 40 feet. It's an imperial recording, and we just want to stretch it up to 65 feet, let it cut, and we can see it there completed before I've actually finished cutting the void form. So we can see the results. We can still adjust it. Maybe we want to angle that edge face. Could be a 60-degree safe slope. And then we can finish that mass, and now it has cut the topo solid. So a lot of really cool things there. To keep on time, we have these key features, how you can create it. So again, you can create it from an import, like a CSV file if you've been issued that. It is a system family, so you can now start working with parameters within the properties of that system family, and there's more tools for contour display setup. You can subdivide that topo solid for hardscaping components, and you can cut and split those topo solids with simple tools like the mass shape tool that we created a void and then did the safe slope. Some other things is when you go to do the cut and fill. So Revit can actually report the cut and fill volumes on a site to aid in determining the costs of the landscape modification during the development. So this is big in the civil environment where you need to do cut and fill, because when you're moving the earth, you've got to put it somewhere. It can be very expensive to do. So now you can apply the cut and fill volume analysis to topo solids using the graded regions. And the grading tools, they mark an existing topo solid as demolished, and it makes a copy with a matching boundary in the current phase. So this is a great tool to help you reduce your site construction cost with the cut and fill analysis. You can also preview the display of the topo solid control points during a pre-highlight and selection. So you can turn off the display of points and toggle if you experience some performance issues, especially with those large sites or contours. The toggle tool is available as a drop-down panel in the shape editing tool, but the points will always be accessible when to edit the topo solid using the modify sub-element tool. Now, because we have this as a topo solid and it's a system family, the objects can now be hosted to those topo solids. So it can host elements from the categories of site, parking, floor-based elements. Even slab edge families can be applied to the edge of a topo solid. So if you're doing a slab edge that you might be using to do a curb, like on a pavement or a road on the edge of the site, you can use that to host to that particular split region of a topo solid. So this is a fantastic new feature to help with your site modeling experience with topo solids. Moving into the structural components, we now have in 2024, you can choose how you want to align the bars in the rebar set, and you can also make the bars in the set to be parallel to the planar face selected in the align and close restraint. So a number of new alignment options, and this has been coming along since 2023. These alignment options for the freeform rebar can increase 3D rebar modeling versatility and help you define the accurate reinforcement for standard and non-standard shapes within concrete elements. 2024, there's a tool to allow you to toggle. So you can actually toggle the stirrup orientation for the aligned distribution of freeform rebar just by hitting the space bar. So this applies only to the closed stirrups in the set. Fabrication, so MEP fabrication, there's a new ductwork stiffener command. This is available under the System tab. This command enables the manual placement of load stiffener families. So currently stiffener families, they can be placed and hosted onto straight segments of fabrication ductwork. After the placement, the hosted stiffener instances would move and resize with the duct segments as users make modifications. So a new family category for MEP framing has now been added for the basic components used in MEP supporting elements such as duct stiffeners, hangers and supports, or equipment racks. 2024 for visibility or having access to additional elevation parameters to control the visibility of MEP components in your views. You can now use these improvements to look at the elevation parameters to help you with your documentation for, say, the installation on a sloped MEP segment. It's going to be a lot more efficient in 2024. So you're going to be able to easily and more accurately control the display of the MEP components within the new visibility filters. And 2024 has a wall thickness as a built-in parameter now for pipes. So the wall thickness parameter is available for pipe tagging and scheduling. You can also use this as a wall thickness parameter in view filters to control the appearance of the pipes in a view. So this is going to help enable you to do more with the documentation of the pipes in the model. Previous releases of Revit, so the insulation, it remained visible when hiding duct and pipe that had insulation in colder climates or warmer climates. So in 2024, the insulation actually gets hidden regardless of the method you use to hide the insulation on duct or pipe elements, making it a lot more efficient in your workflows. Another simple feature, but a nice feature, the scope box feature can be used to control the extents of levels, grids, reference plans, even the views themselves in the plan views. So the height and name parameters have been moved from the options bar. It's now in the properties palette when creating the scope box in 2024. So after you create the scope box, you can now edit its height value accurately and directly in the properties palette. Project parameters. So these were previously sorted by the date, the time of creation. Now project parameters are sorted alphabetically in a type and instance properties dialog. So these enhanced parameters sorting will actually enhance your usability. Once you've built your family and defined your family types, you can now use the family types export tool to generate a text file. So in 2024, the family type parameter gets included in the export, helping you to create a family type catalog with a lot less effort. So with our simulation tools, we did a bit with the solar study enhancements in 2023. We've gone a little bit further with this, so you can actually access the sun settings dialog box directly within the ribbon. Smaller time intervals have been measured in seconds, so they're now available for more accurate single-day solar analysis studies. And the study shadows, they've got higher precision, so they're working to 15, 30, 45, or 60-second intervals. All you need to do now, you just drag the sun along its path when you're in the perspective view. For system family, for system analysis, so there's some new capabilities for the energy analysis. This will provide a better workflow simplification, especially when you're working with the linked architectural models. So for the mechanical guys, the 3D views can now be chosen more selectively to define what elements you want to use in an energy analytical model creation. So this essentially, it provides an additional mean of controlling those elements that you want to use in EAM, and it's independent from the room bounding setting. So a number of helpful features to work with an energy analytical model. And this can be used with the Autodesk Insights system analysis, or if you want to take this out to a third-party tool, you can export it. We have a GB XML export as well. So really beneficial for those larger complex models. And if you're looking into doing more analysis with structural components, we now have, for the structural engineers, you can apply hosted loads to specific areas of the panels and members. Additionally, now you can also copy those loads to other hosts. There's also a structural area load, which can be presented using color coding to different load natures, which results are more clearly documented in the analytical model viewer. And you can now create multiple associations between structural elements to better coordinate updates across the physical and the analytical models. So you can associate multiple analytical panels or members to a single physical object, or switch around, or vice versa. So an example would be several analytical panels that represent a single physical floor, several beams associated to a single multi-spanned analytical member, etc. You can do all this stuff, and this new feature will help you better coordinate updates across both the physical and analytical models. Structural engineers can also now use information generated in the detailed report to better manage steel connections. they can easily identify and track the connections that were placed, the situations where perhaps connections already existed, and when there were no connections where they weren't applicable. These detailed results for steel connections, this can be used to help design those steel connections or those details more quickly and a lot more accurately. If we're looking at the calculations for pressure, so flow, liquid, and air running down pipes or ductwork, so the connecting of the design and detail process for mechanical systems, the flow and pressure drop calculations have now been added to the fabrication elements. So you can use the fluids tab in the fabrication settings dialog to specify a fluid and a temperature for each fabrication service. So a quick example would be in a duct, you would have the fluid set to air, and you would apply the density and dynamic viscosity for the duct settings. The roughness parameter, say for the materials that the fluid or the air has to go down, this has been added to the straight elements and is now visible in the properties palette. For networks, so for network-based calculations for the ductwork, to integrate the design and fabrication workflows, the network-based calculations for flow and pressure drops are now available for the design ductwork. So using the networks tab for the mechanical settings dialog will enable the calculation engine for the ductwork. So when enabled, calculation runs in the background and you can keep on working in your Revit modeling environment. For electrical loads, so demand factors now apply to the analytical loads. So demand loads and demand currents are now calculated for each electrical analytical component and is displayed in the system browser. For each load classification, total connected and demand load, it's schedulable in units of power and current. And 2024 also, it enhances electrical load analysis capabilities. And this was first introduced for electrical engineers in 2023. Engineers can now manage load sets for non-coincident backup equipment loads. And so here you use the system browser to assign the loads to load set and then specify standby quantities and then better quantify and document the impacts to total demand loads. Moving into where we're going with our cloud and interoperability. So you can link the coordination models from Autodesk Docs. So there's a new link coordination model feature with Revit. This will make it easier for project teams to evolve and work together. So it will keep the files light because it's linked. You can also bring in 60 different file formats that are supported on the construction cloud. And because it's an underlay, so you'll underlay the coordination model as a visual reference when designing in Revit. And then this will reduce the need for interpretation when coordinating the design deliverables with partners and project teams. Now, the properties, like you can select individual coordination objects by pressing the tab key. So you hover over a tab until it highlights, and then it's going to bring up information on that element. So it's going to get the properties from the element displayed in the properties palette. So these properties, I mean, it's read only because it's linked in. So you're not editing it, but you can still read the data that's been brought into your model for better coordination. When linking that coordination model into your Revit project, you can also snap to coordination model objects. So this is controlled by the new snap to coordination models option located in the snaps dialog box. So for example, if you need to use the measure tool to get a distance between one object and the other, you can do this between the hosted object, the linked object, and the current Revit project. So this is really going to help with your coordination modeling process. We also have a new coordination model tab. So that's in your manage links dialog box. And the information, it's arranged into a grid structure to provide easier understanding of the linked coordination models. You can also modify the placement of the coordination model and place with a place instance object. When working with the cloud models, the local copies will save to your C drive. So it's your username, app data local under the Autodesk Revit environment. Now with Revit 2024, you can specify a different folder location. So this is a big thing if you don't have much space on your C drive. You're continuously clearing your cache. Maybe you want to locate it in a different drive. You just go to File, Options, and click the Browse button available. And this is available in the New Cloud Model tab. And you can select a different file path. A message will pop up and indicate that you'll need to restart it, just to repath it. But you restart Revit so that the cloud model cache settings are taken into consideration. So this is fantastic. You can now control where you want to save those local copies when working with your Revit cloud models, doing Revit cloud work sharing. Now, just for the Revit LT users who maybe don't have collections, you can import or link PDF files. So if you're working on smaller projects and you've got PDF data, you can use that as a background for a floor plan. You can delineate over and trace those conditions. Revit will snap to the PDF lines. Now that's if it's created from a vector environment. And there's also the feature, it's supported by the Design Automation API of Revit. Revit and robot structural analysis. So there's Revit to robot link enhancements. So Revit is recommended as the central to the physical and analytical model coordination, and its analytical model geometry. It can be accurate and fully versatile. The nature of the whole Revit robot interoperability is being adjusted. So we now truly have a bidirectional geometrical exchange that's focused on the analytical model and its material and sectional properties. And the analytical driven modeling approach for Revit introduces new enhanced structural modeling capabilities for analytical modeling. Parameter services. So this is something we introduced in partway through 2023. So this allows you to host your data on the cloud, but align it across your company using your company standards of shared parameters. And it's going to eliminate the need for that duplicated content. So instead of using embedded parameters, you want to be using a shared parameter file. These are some of the benefits of actually having a shared parameter file. And so what we have enabled with this parameter services is at different levels in the construction cloud with account admin, project admin, and project member, you can say at project admin level, you can create and edit parameters directly in the cloud. And then for the project members, they can access this information, search for parameters, and then load those shared parameters into their Revit environment. So this is how we enable the service within the Autodesk Construction Cloud. So what we have here, and I'll just make sure this is playing. Yeah. So here as the account administrator, we would go to the library and we would start using the library. So we activate it. Now there's tools in all of this. There's tools for forms and costing. The one we're looking at today is the parameter tool. There's also information like on how you can learn more. And then there's the accepting the service terms of the parameter service. And then here we now in our library can start to create a parameter collection. So we're going to give it a name. We're going to add information to it. So in Revit, we have project parameters, shared project parameters. We want to add the parameters from the service we just created. Here you can see all the parameter names. Now, some of them are active. So they've actually had the category, the type or instance properties group all filled out. Now, the other ones down here will show you that the data is missing, so it's not ready to use. And there'll be some other ones here which will show that they're already being used in the project. So the missing categories and type and instance we want to add, we can do this as the project admin, and we can create that information ready to sync down into our Revit model. So we're going to confirm those settings. We're going to look at the status and then filter through the ones that we need to add more information to. So it's not just one by one. You can do them all at the same time. You can just use the drop-down window here to populate the property palette groups, choose whether it's a type or instance parameter, and this will load all those shared parameters to your Revit environment. And then here on the Autodesk Construction Cloud, we can also create new parameters. So demo name, first parameter, and again, we're adding the property palette group, the data type, and then we are creating that now, and that's creating a parameter on the cloud, which again, we can bring into Revit as a shared parameter for users to benefit from in their design and construction documentation. So there's some really cool stuff on this. If you haven't used shared parameters, please check it out. It can really help when you're working on those projects and you need to be collaborating across a number of different teams, especially if you're working hybrid or working in different location. This new parameter service is really powerful for working on those larger projects. So just for the sake of time, I'm just going to move forward because there's a few more things to get through. And I know we've only got about 15 minutes left. This QR code will have more on it, explaining how the parameter service works. Design optimization in 2024. So for any generative design users or Dynamo users, so we have Dynamo 2.17. This includes some new features. So we've got node recommendations, which are powered by machine learning. There's settings to import and export, and there's a graph import to workspace. Also with the Dynamo player, you can view graph issues and dependencies. You can add image outputs, and you can try out new sample graphs in the Dynamo player for 2024. So there's a lot of stuff here for any Dynamo users to enhance your design and documentation automation workflows. 2024 also has many tools like that, just simple things like dialog boxes. So they were formerly fixed, and if you had like a long alphanumeric bit of characters there, you couldn't read it all. So here you can resize it, and it's going to make it easier to work with long lists and names at any resolution. The Revit 2024 API documenting, it contains detailed guidelines for expanding the steel connection functionalities, as well as some new API samples. And we have application macros and document macros. They're now disabled by default if you open up a Revit file from someone else, and it gives you a warning about macros, or maybe it doesn't. This will help you avoid malicious codes being run silently in the background. So there's actually a new warning here when enabling macros to inform users of any potential security risk. Customers can also work on more complex Revit models, since Element ID range is now upgraded from 32-bit to 64-bit. So you can access to a class of Revit group, reload different method options. There's other tools to disclose and adjust the draw order location over detail items and 3D families. So this is going to expand API access for a number of third-party developers wanting to work on the new 2024 enhanced API. Looking at the efficiencies of documentation. And again, these are just simple things that may have been frustrating. Maybe you've used like a Dynamo script to do them in the past. You can now place multiple views and schedules on a sheet at the same time. So either by dragging them into the sheet, into the drawing area, or using in the dialog box in the ribbon, the place view command for views. The select view dialog, it contains a new search functionality. And when dragging those views and your schedules into the sheet, they're positioned and they're tiled on the cursor to make the selection and arrangement of those views and schedules a lot easier. The move view align to sheet command has been generalized to move align to sheet, and and it's been expanded supporting moving the following sheet named elements. So you can now do this for views, schedules, panel schedules, detail groups, annotations, detail elements, revision clouds and tags, and now images. We also have the open sheet command. It allows you to open a sheet from the drawing area. So if you select multiple views from the project browser and use the open sheet command, a confirmation dialog will get displayed with the number of sheets that will be opened. So open sheets related to specific views can be done more quickly. And a big one, if you're into document control, a new revision clouds category is now available for scheduling. So you can use fields from views, sheets, and revision clouds to create your own revision schedule. And this schedule may also contain schedule keys and shared parameters. And another nice one is aligning patterns on a shape or edited surfaces. So you can use the align tool to align the surface patterns on the shape edit elements, especially if you want to lay out certain particular key components. This will use the controls on the contextual tab to specify whether the alignment applies across the entire surface or only applies to the face and where that pattern line is selected. So you just got to note that if the shape edit element display non-flat surfaces, the pattern will, if it's on a non-flat surface, it'll appear a little bit distorted. And other enhancements we have here, 2024, you can add bending details to your reinforcement drawings to create accurate bar bending and installation instructions. You can place bending details in plan, section, elevation views, inside and outside the view crop region using the dedicated tools in the ribbon. This new feature is going to streamline the coordination between the designers and the fabricators by improving the clarity of the shop drawings in Revit. And you can now create clear fabrication instructions by adding bar bending schedules, which include the shape bending details that accurately represent the geometry of the bars. And a nice little feature here, previous versions, the way you would display 2D elements, they were displayed in the family editor projects and then printed. When printed, the output, it wasn't that consistent, it was inconsistent. So we've now got better improvements to the behavior of this, so it ensures that elements are displayed correctly, consistently everywhere. And you can now resize all the rows in a schedule placed on a sheet to clearly represent its contents. So this will be including the text, the images, and the graphics. You can do this simply by setting the resize rows parameter to all in the schedule graphics properties palette, and then entering in that desired value for the row height parameter. Okay, so we're getting good on time. So Twinmotion integration. So this is really cool. Twinmotion is now part of your subscription with Autodesk Revit and AEC Collections. If you haven't tried Twinmotion, it's a fantastic engine that comes from the Unreal family. So we've had this available from Revit 2023.1 and beyond. So it has real-time photorealistic rendering. You can control the GI and the ray tracing. It's easy to use. I'm a big 3ds Max fan, but it can be a little bit harder to use. Twinmotion, it's got a much easier to use user interface, and you can get the results really quickly. We have a one-click sync to Revit. And there's some cool things like if you've used Sketchfab, there's geometry assets available within the import. And there's other really cool things like Quixel, which uses photogrammetry meshing data. So if you want to get in all these really cool elements, you can use Quixel and Sketchfab. And then, of course, if you want to scale really big projects and use the Unreal Engine, you can bridge that across. So fantastic tool, now part of your subscription with Autodesk. We've added some features. So the old way you do it would be with like the Datasmith file. We now have an automatic synchronization between Revit to Twinmotion. So all visible geometry within that Revit view. So you'll have like a 3D view, which you want to use for your visualization. You don't need everything in it, but you can keep that link maintained to your Twinmotion environment. Again, it works with 3D views only. And there's a new release of Twinmotion, which is a brand new interface, which is really cool. So I've got a video here, which we can run. So I've managed to get the timing right. So this just takes you through some of the workflows. So here we have a pretty large model inside of Twinmotion. And this one is actually a real data set that we've had procured. And this is the Twinmotion 22 version. So this will look at a new project, or you could start with an existing project, and there's different ways you can collapse the models. It will then just process the data, and then it will link it. So if you've been inputting in FBX files, OBJ files, this is now linking it directly from Revit. Now, the newer one has a different sort of interface environment, like different templates, which are really cool. Now, this is what it looks like. So it's got the Revit materials, and then it has access to different tools to scatter different environments within the Twinmotion interface. And here you can drag and drop different types of grass, different types of textures. You can use this tool to shape up the environment. So here, maybe we don't have all the surveyed topography. We can use tools to create a site to make it look better. And you can adjust the diameter of this tool for the push-pull to bring the information up. You can adjust the intensity. So it's kind of like a really cool sculpting tool. And again, like this is just point and shoot. You don't have to be incredibly accurate. You can just do it straight away. Large tree database. Of course, you can import in your own trees. If you want some cool trees, I know for the Australian database, there's XFrog, which has an Oceania tree database. These are the default ones you have in here, there, and they've got smarts behind them. So when you place them, you can scatter them around as well. When you place them, you can change whether they're going to be winter trees or summer trees. You can scale them. Here we can paint the trees on. So you can bring in a couple of different types of trees and then scatter them around the site, and you can adjust the diameter and the density of how you're going to scatter them. So really fast ways to iterate instances of those trees on the surfaces. And again, this has been done all in real time, right? A lot of detail all being done within the Twinmotion Unreal Engine. And of course, we can adjust the age, the growths, the tint on the leaves, the bark. It's all available there to quickly create a forest and vegetation on the forest floor around our site. And again, this is a linked Revit model, and we've created a site within a short amount of time. Here, there's some different tools in terms of how you want things to display. So you can turn on a camera, look at the focal length, there's depth of field, there's the ray tracing engine you can turn on. You can change the weather, you can put vignetting around the outside to give it that camera look. And all we're doing here is we're just navigating to a particular camera view and just getting a quick feeling of how the ray tracing engine is going to calculate. Again, you don't need to let it run fully here. When you go to process that image, it will run the ray tracer. We can also look at the location. This particular site is in El Salvador. So it knows where it is in the world. Materials as well. So the Revit materials do come in but you've got some really powerful tools in the Twinmotion engine to customize the materials. It's got better glass. There are some new glass features, and you have tools to adjust the textures more readily. So you don't have to go back into things like the Revit Material Editor to adjust the X and Y parameters. You can do it here in Unreal. Creepers, vines, all of these things are available to load into Revit and then populate up and down to add a vegetation to the wall of your building. And again, it snaps to the host. So you can be very creative about using these tools to get the look and feel without having to use a third-party tool to grow ivy or vines over the building. So very quickly, we're just making some changes. Last few things here is looking at the road and the density of the tarmac, the time of the day, afternoons and mornings always look good. There's even like different features to add, like grunge, show a bit of weathering on your building. And finally here, we've got a vehicle library and a pedestrian and bike library. So this is just dragging and dropping and putting the cars out the front of the buildings. And then if you want to change the lighting of those cars, you can do it. People as well, we have animated people. And so these animated people, you can adjust if you want them to be speaking or lying down or dancing. Really easy to do. You don't need to go into an engine and do rigging of the characters. This can all be done all in real time within the Twinmotion engine. And you can bring in your own characters if you want. There's grouping of those characters, and those characters are animated as well. And again, it's point and shoot, and they host. They're categorized for sports, for events. And you know, as you see these programs be developed, companies who make these characters provide them with the software. So some of these characters might be from XYZ Design. And again, if you need to move and get those shots looking correct for your visualization, because we created that camera before, we can populate it with people, we can populate it with vehicles and vegetation, and now get a quick snapshot on how that's going to render. So again, a really quick video on how to do this, and how you can scale into these larger projects. You could even animate or phase them if you want to do construction phasing. So simple tools like animation, you can do camera paths, but you can also do paths for people and vehicles. So all you do is you just choose a line from point A to point B, and the people will follow the line that you've delineated over that floor. Now this can be done for other objects as well. So you can actually load in custom objects from your library and then assign them to the paths. Same here with cars. You can do cars on the path, and this will be updated when you come back to your view. So these are the results you can get without having to be a visualization expert. If you're bidding for a job, you're trying to win a job, or you're wanting to get something out to show a client, you can link that Revit model into Twinmotion and get some fantastic results very quickly without having to be a visualization expert or without having to spend money on third-party software. This comes with your Revit subscription, AEC Collections subscription, to enable you to do more with the Revit data in visualization. So if you need to know more about that, we have a lot of answers on our forums, and the Unreal guys are providing answers as well. There's a great getting started page from our friends at Epic Games on how to get up and running. Once you're up and running, it's a very easy tool to create compelling visualizations. So with that, but it's just on time, I will pause and see if Ty has any questions.
Thank you, Sam. It's exactly at 12 o'clock our time. All right, so I haven't got any questions in the chat. So if anyone else want to ask a question, please feel free to do so.
And if people don't have time for Q&A, we feel free to email me. So I'll just put that on the screen there. That's my email address. So if you want any information and are not comfortable doing a chat, hang on, we do have some questions coming in. Is that in the chat? That's coming in the chat, Ty.
Yes. So the question is, how can I get Oceania? Oceania tree database for Twinmotion?
Excellent question. So I'll just bring this across. There's a company called Xfrog. So there's a third-party provider, but they do have Oceania trees. So here on the Xfrog library, you can download. I mean, you got to pay for it, but you download these files, and they have all these different native trees in different file formats. So if you're using Twinmotion, you can bring in as an OBJ, and I'm pretty sure they should have an FBX file, or you can convert these files as well. But these have the famous New Zealand cabbage tree or Bakutakawa. So all of these different trees, these native trees, are available from Xfrog for you to use for your Twinmotion visualizations. Unfortunately, it's not free because someone has made these as a third party.
I'm just also sharing a online tutorial from Epic Games for the tutorial of Twinmotion on the chat as well. Okay, so next question from Gemma. Does Autodesk offer training in Twinmotion?
We don't offer training, but I'm happy to run like a lunch and learn demo. I'm pretty passionate about visualization. So my email address is on the screen there. If you want to reach out directly, we could set up like a workshop, like a 1-hour workshop to take you through the basics. More advanced training, that's where Advanced Spatial will come in to do more advanced training in this space.
Yeah, and also with the link I sent earlier, there's a lot of great online tutorial that we can follow as well.
I would love to offer training, but I'm in a different role, so. For anybody who does want just the basics, and I'll just bring this up here on the screen. I did do a YouTube video on getting started with Twinmotion. So it's a 30-minute video, and it takes you through the basics with a small data set, and it shows a few more advanced tools that I like in terms of the lighting environments to get more photorealism. And so here under videos, I did this. Here it is. So for anybody who wants a getting started video, I'll paste that in the chat. And that basically will take you through the workflows that I showed before. But what I try and do is I go into a bit more detail on lighting the models and just getting it all set up for more photorealism, customization of textures, because this one had an outdoor fireplace. So I look at the particle tools, which are pretty cool, and they're great to host. And then finally, just things like vegetation, and then just fine tuning the path tracing at the end. Yeah, so there's a question here on internal renders. Yeah, lighting can be a bit difficult to get right, especially if you've got to do bounce calculations. For me, I'd probably say you might want to look at 3ds Max. And the reason for that is because you can use tools like 3ds Max and V-Ray, and that's where you can customize lighting portals. And I'll just see if I can find the NZ. I did a whole workflow on bathrooms, and bathrooms again are notoriously difficult to light. So here there's a slightly older video, but it takes you through the basics of linking a Revit model into 3ds Max, and then in the workflow here it takes you through how to set up the materials and illuminate it. And then towards the end here, I think I've got some tips on the rendering to get the best results. So that is available here within the Autodesk ANZ YouTube channel. So the Twinmotion one is there as well, and you'll find within the playlist, if anybody wants to go through them, I've created a playlist of some of my videos, which might include some older VR stuff. Navisworks, which is in the collections as well. And then I think here under the my videos here, you'll find a lot of videos, tutorials that relate to the whole workflows using InfoWorks, 3ds Max, Format, and Navisworks. They're all here within the, I don't know, 84 videos or something. So if anybody wants to learn, please feel free. I'll put this in the chat as well, Ty.
Thank you, Sam. Okay, does anyone else have any further questions? Looks like that's all for today. So today's session will be recorded. Once we upload up, we can share this link to everyone as well. But other than that, thank you, Sam, and thank you everyone for joining to today's webinar.
Thanks so much. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for attending.
Thank you.